what kind of hell you've been catching and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
At first, he was fighting for Black Power. He rejected Martin Luther King's idea of nonviolence and said black people should defend themselves by any means necessary. We can see this in the quote, "Abide by the laws of the land, but if a white man smacks you, make sure he never smacks a black man again." After that, he slowly transitioned to fighting for human rights.
For the sake of simplicity, let's say that the movement started while Malcolm was in jail. He had caught wind of Elijah Muhammad and his Nation of Islam through letters his siblings would send him. Malcolm eventually became a Muslim and, somewhere down the line, became an important member of the Nation of Islam. His speeches were incredible and helped boost the popularity of the organization, and thus, the movement.
Malcolm Little had a difficult childhood. His father was killed by the KKK because he was a proud supporter of the Back to Africa movement. This was a big shock to his mother, who had to go to a mental institution after receiving the news. Because none of his parents could help him, he had to go to an orphanage and he was separated from his brothers and sisters. He went to school later and wanted to be a lawyer, but he got told that black people don't get to be lawyers, which made him drop out of school. He later became a pimp, drug dealer, and gambler. This path of life later got him arrested for burglary and he got sent to prison. When he was in prison, he took his education very seriously and read everything he could to educate himself. He also wrote letters to his brother Reginald. With these letters, he discovered Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. When his sentence of jail had ended, he joined them and changed his name to Malcolm X instead of Malcolm Little, because Little was the name of the slave merchant who sold his ancestors in America. Later, he becomes a spokesman of the Nation of Islam, and he is a prolific spokesman. Later, when he learns Elijah had seduced many women in the Nation of Islam and had children with them, X leaves the Nation of Islam and creates the Muslim Mosque Inc., and also goes to make a pilgrimage in the Holy Lands of Mecca. That's where he gains his Muslim name, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, and when he comes back from this trip, he has very new ideas like fighting for human rights, but the Nation of Islam sees him as a threat and firebombs his house. There was no fatalities that time, but later at a speech, he gets shot 15 times and declared dead when he arrives at the hospital.
Tensions between Malcolm and Muhammad started to grow, in part because Malcolm was starting to overshadow Muhammad, both in popularity and in influence, but also because they started to disagree on a lot of topics. For example, after an attack on the Nation of Islam's mosques, Malcolm wanted to retaliate, as the attack had left one man dead and many injured. But Muhammad also disagreed on Malcolm wanting to work with other black activists. Malcolm was eventually kicked out of the Nation of Islam after he learned that Muhammad had had children with many sisters. He later revealed this to the public and was then repeatedly attacked by members of the Nation of Islam later in his life. Malcolm made a lot of speeches, and they all got a boatload of attention. He eventually became the poster child for the whole anti-white movement, and as he softened his views, the movement did too. Muslim Mosque Incorporated and Organization of Afro-American Unity were founded by. Thanks to Mr. X, black people were no longer called or colored people, and were instead referred to as Afro-Americans. Muslim Mosque Incorporated and Organization of Afro-American Unity collapsed after his death and ultimately led to nothing.
We were very interested by this cause because, contrary to other cause leaders, he had a very difficult past and wasn't always a moral compass, but became one through what he learned. And also there is a very well-made movie about him made by Spike Lee. I do not think there are many ways we could have helped his cause except like not being racist.
No.
There isn't really a future for this movement since it's dead. But I think there's still hope for the cause. For example, the Black Lives Matter movement is still very active and helps with that cause. To end, I would like to finish with his very popular quote, "If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything."